Welcome to Cheaper Than Therapy, a podcast that journeys into conversations that demystify, destigmatize, and desensitize what goes on both inside the therapy room and in daily life.
I'm Vanessa Bennett.
And I'm Danae Logan.
And we are seekers, soul sisters, and holders of sacred space. Every week, we sit down for soul-provoking conversations with fellow seekers, thought leaders, change makers, and even real people during live coaching sessions as they navigate the hard work it takes to be a human.
This is Cheaper Than Therapy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cheaper Than Therapy. We're very excited today because this is the first time Danae and I have actually recorded a session with a couple. And we wanted to do so because we felt like this topic that this couple wrote into us about is one that a lot of people can really relate to. I know as a couples therapist, I've dealt with many couples who have struggled with co-parenting and also parenting together as a couple when there's a child from a previous relationship, right? Especially one that's a preteen, which we will talk about as well. So today we are talking to Jay and Gloria, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the struggles they're having. It sounds like exactly what I just said, right? Like parenting when you have a child from another marriage, parenting when you have these other relationships that are kind of obviously still there in the mix in some way from the past, and how to do this together. And I'm assuming just the healthiest way possible. You know, you both wrote in and you said that you've done a lot of work together, separate and together. It sounds like this relationship feels much more conscious than any previous relationship you both have had, which is exciting to hear. But why don't you all kind of take us through what the biggest rub is for you that, I guess I always use the word catalyst, right? Like what the catalyst was for you to reach out and be like, yeah, we'd like some perspective on this.
So I have a soon to be 13-year-old daughter. I had been previously married for about 5 years, and in that relationship was extremely chaotic and what I like to say toxic. I was in and out of that relationship. It was super hurtful to my daughter. I had left the relationship probably 8 or 9 times. In that time, I was a heavy drinker. I put myself in AA, and the relationship was extremely chaotic, and my daughter just suffered a lot in that relationship. I finally was able to break free from that relationship, and I had separated and now divorced for about going on 2 years. In that time, I had did a lot of work, and I decided that I was ready to try and possibly date. And when I met Gloria here, my partner, we've been dating now for going on 11 months. And we have the most conscious, healthiest relationship that I've ever had, especially being in my sobriety. It allows me also to heal. And I think the relationship between us is fantastic. I have the best relationship with her. However, my daughter, I don't think was ready for the relationship, although she said she was. She has now have her reservations with my partner. In the beginning, everything seemed to be in flow, and we had came across a situation where Gloria, I want to say, stepped out of character with my daughter and was a bit firm with my daughter, and I guess it was too much too soon for my daughter. And my daughter didn't like it. And from there, ever since, the relationship has been really rocky. My daughter pulls in and out of the relationship. She tries to have a relationship with Gloria. Then she pulls back from the relationship with Gloria. And in that time, she's mean. She'll come off rude and not interested, which has pinned us against each other, and to the point where sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult because it's also hurtful to her, and it hurts her, and then it hurts me, and then my daughter's hurt, and she's like, oh, you choose Gloria. It's just It's extremely difficult. And I just feel like I cannot have a relationship with her without my daughter. It's just, it can't happen, you know, and I want to have this relationship as good. And I want my daughter to see it because we came from a really hard background. Our past has a lot of things in it that hurt her. And she doesn't necessarily know how to let it go. And she brings up my past relationship a lot here. And I remind her often that that person is not her.
It's not the same.
You're making her pay. You're making her pay for what that other person did. And she doesn't know how to let it go. I've had her in therapy. She didn't want to do therapy anymore. She's kind of in those teenage years where she knows everything. And it's been pretty hard, you know. It's been pretty hard because I want to keep this relationship, and I don't know how. I don't know how to help my daughter heal from that pain. Although I've healed, I don't know how to help her heal. And she's just taking it out on her, on my current partner, and it's really putting a strain on our relationship where sometimes Gloria is just like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how we're going to work out.
Yeah.
So add a little bit of context to this. I was also married for 3.5 years, in a relationship for 10. I am 99% sure that person was very narcissistic. And I didn't realize that's what it was until I was out. Near the end of my marriage, I started to realize, okay, I don't know if perhaps everything that they're making me think or feel is accurate. And I credit Iyanla Van Zant for helping me open my eyes to this. And then me and my best friend were like addicted to her show and the healing and the learning that came from it.
So good.
And, yeah, totally. And then all the healing and all the podcasts just followed after that. And I can't get enough of it. And then Jazz was kind enough to put me onto YouTube. So more of the juice, you know. I was kind of thrust into a parent role in my marriage. And here I'm reminded that Jazz is a parent. The other parent is also active in Jazz's child's life. So I don't have to parent. And that was part of the struggle for me in the beginning, was you don't have to parent. I didn't know what that looked like. So I had to figure it out with Jazz. Thank God I didn't have to figure it out alone, at least. But then it was, okay, what does that look like and feel like for you, for Jazz, and for the child? And the catalyst for the hard reminder, Jazz had reminded me in the past. But the hard reminder was that incident that happened. If you've seen that movie, The Help, I call it the terrible awful. So I call that incident the terrible awful, where I stepped out of line. I was very, very firm, and I even cursed. But I realized shortly, like seconds after, A, I was triggered. It reminded me of something my other daughter did, and B, that shouldn't have happened. And I went straight to Jazz to talk about it, but by then it was a little too late. The bad thing had already happened, and that was the catalyst for all the Rocky that we have now. I think the reason why we both wrote in was because of a tiny, tiny little thing that just, I think it was evident that there is a huge issue here that somehow needs to be fixed. And it was just bad behavior stemming from the child.
Yeah.
Not accepting and just pushing away. And for a while I had just taken it and just, made myself small and kind of felt there's not really much I could say or do. This is for, them two to figure out. But then my partner took it upon themselves when they caught that. Before I said it before to you, babe, like before I could even turn around and open my mouth and catch my breath to say something, my partner made it their business to go into the room with the child and have a firm discussion as to why that behavior is unacceptable. And you cannot do that. And I'm so grateful because in my marriage, I was always made to feel like I was wrong.
Yeah.
And how I see things and how I perceive things and how I feel about things doesn't matter. Because I wasn't raised the way that they were. I didn't see things the way that they were. And I was just different from how they were. Here, it's the complete opposite. I may be different. I may have had a different experience, but that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. So at least we see each other, we hear each other, we understand each other, and we're willing to work with each other. And in that moment, I felt like, wow, I'm not even being included, even though it affected me and it happened to me. But I understand, and it's okay. Like, that's something that they have to do in the way that works for them. But that small incident, it wasn't as big in a tangible sense, like the terrible, awful that I did, but it was big in the sense that it affected me deeply in an emotional sense. And I think it affected my partner as well, because they made it their business to handle immediately in the way that they did. So I think that was a catalyst. Everything led up to, but then that incident was a catalyst for us writing into you both.
I think that there are two things I want to ask you guys to think about for me, right? So whenever we're talking about co-parenting a child, and this, Jay, because you have another partner who is also a voice that is coming in with whatever the two of you decide, that is the co-parenting that I'm talking about, right? So the two of you essentially are like one family structure, and then there's another family structure. And these structures are sort of going to be, this is the way that we do things in our system, in our household, holding in mind that there is another system, another household that your daughter is going back to. And I know I'm like preaching to the choir. I think you're well aware of this, but I just want to sort of name that, right? And so what I think becomes really important is for the two of you to start with a conversation around what does parenting mean? What are the values that we sort of are? And so Jay, this starts with you a little bit. Like, what are my values in terms of the way that I want my daughter to understand who I am as a parent, what that means to be quote parented. And let me just give an example, I guess. Like, so for me, my approach to parenting tends to be a little bit more like in the conscious parenting realm, meaning I don't believe that because I'm an adult, I have like adult supremacy over my child, that my child is less than a human being. That's something that many of us were raised with. That is sort of like a paradigm and a way of holding parenting. I don't hold that to be true. And so, Catherine Winter Celery, who's a parenting expert, I just want to give a shout out because she's the person I took this from and it was so helpful. She sort of gave this example that her dad was in a conflict with her child, and, she came in, and instead of sort of like jumping in the conflict and starting to parent her child, she came in and, as if she was talking to two human beings, said, "What's going on here, guys? Tell me what happened," right? And so each person gets to feel like they have a voice, right? And so I'm giving you an example of like what my value in terms of parenting and how I might parent, but you guys get to have that conversation yourself. Like, what does that look like? And how do we want to structure that? And that's a decision you make together away from your daughter, right? Now, that being said, Jade, this is where this becomes like sort of the challenging aspect of parenting. But what I'm going to ask you to do a little bit is start to play with allowing Gloria to have her own relationship with your daughter, meaning they are going to have their own dynamics, their own conflicts sometimes. And it's not that like, I'm out of it, like I don't ever sort of jump in, but it's that thing of a little bit like allowing your daughter to advocate for herself with Gloria, allowing her to have her own perspective with Gloria. Because if you don't, what will end up happening is what you're speaking to, this dynamic of like, I feel like I'm sort of like in the middle with the two of them. I feel like there's this triangulation happening and I'm like, I'm trying to pick a side, but this is my kid, this is my love. And it just puts you not only in an awful position, but also really puts like a wedge and a challenge in their ability to cultivate a relationship with one another. Does that make sense?
I agree to what you're saying. And I've also encouraged Gloria to try to have that relationship, but because of what had happened before between them, it kind of like the relationship severed and my daughter put up a wall, which she doesn't want to put down for her. My daughter basically had told me that she's not interested in forgiving Gloria and she doesn't want to forget. And she uses the past relationship to gauge right now this experience, what she's already been through. So for her, those little moments, that moment that happened reminded her of the past, and she's scared to allow Gloria to come back in. And she told me quite frankly that she doesn't trust that Gloria won't hurt her again. So she told me that she's a 12-year-old told me that she is 50% aware that she is sabotaging the relationship on purpose.
Yeah.
So it hurts me to hear my daughter say this because I feel at this point she doesn't want me in this relationship. because she's afraid that what happened in the past is going to happen again. And with every reason, like, I understand, I just don't think that she sees this new person that I've become. Although I know that I've made the change, that doesn't necessarily mean that she trusts me 100%. And I don't know how to show her in the ways that I've changed. And I want to model a healthy relationship for her.
Yes.
It's like she rejects, and it makes our relationship more difficult, to the point where now when we're all together, it's like both of them are tiptoeing around each other. And it just makes the dynamic really uncomfortable. And I'm trying to do things where we are all incorporated together, where it feels like we're all in flow, but we're not there yet. And I don't know how to get back to that point where my daughter frankly told me, I don't want a relationship with Gloria.
Early on in my relationship, I feel like Jazz was trying to do exactly what you said. I feel like they were trying to allow for me to establish a relationship with their child. And I had their child's cell phone number, and we would text each other, and that was going all fine and dandy until the terrible awful. And then the fragment happened, and then it was a huge paradigm shift. I feel like my partner is trying to allow for that now. And I think I'm pretty sure I've said this to you. I probably only said it once, but I feel like now I realize that allowing for that type of free, open reign relationship with your child so early on might have been a little bit too much too soon. And I think I got a little too comfortable. And now we have this issue, and I do want to have a relationship with their child, but I am also, and I think you know this, afraid. And also I know I've said this to you once or twice, like, why should I feel like I want to have a relationship with them too when they keep treating me this way? So my partner has expressed to me the same thing that their child is feeling and communicating to them with regards to a relationship with me. I seem to be communicating the same thing to my partner when it comes to a relationship with their child. It looks like me and Bella are literally in the same space now.
Okay, so I want to offer something to play with, okay? First, I want to invite you guys to stop referring to the incident as the terrible awful. It's giving it a lot of power that I think we want to just sort of like get that out of there, right? So we want to normalize ruptures and repairs, which means in relationships, we are going to have moment of testing boundaries, of challenging confrontations that, like, when we come together and process them, they can actually make our relationship stronger, right? So what I give as an example a lot of times in the therapy room is like, I love it when a client gets mad at me. I love it when a client like almost wants to leave therapy, because what that gives me an opportunity to do is build trust with that client, right? You can get mad at me and I can hold that and I'm not going anywhere. And a little bit, that is what your daughter was testing and is frankly continuing to test, right? And so, Gloria, I'm going to ask you to step into the realm a little bit of like I can be in relationship with you. And one, yes, you don't get to sort of talk to me any kind of way that I wouldn't let anyone else in the world talk to me. And I can hold your anger and not like take it personally and know that it's not about me, right? It's a little bit this thing of like what kids do is like, I give the example a lot of times if you send your kid, and Jay, you know about this, like if you send your kid to preschool or wherever like the school is in like early development, they will be like a little angel all day, like just hanging out, chilling, like no problems. The minute they come home, they're like, wow! And like, you're like, whoa, why are all the emotions saved for me? It's because one, you're a safer space, a safer container, but also it's a little bit of like, testing what is safe in the world when they're around new people, right? And so that takes time. This is a little bit of like, I'm asking both of you, I guess, to give this some time and space and understand that what it is right now is not what it will always be. But if both of you really normalize, this is what happens in relationships, you guys. We are building trust with one another. This takes time. There's no rush. We get to take whatever amount of time we need to build safety with one another. And so, Jay, that's a little bit of what you were speaking to. Like, we're drawing from the past as our reference of what the future can and will be. No, we sort of say, like, the past is what it was, and we are going to rebuild something new and different based on who we are becoming, and we want to allow space for that.
Yeah, I think so. I want to jump on the last thing I heard you say, Danae, which is this idea of time. It's like, Jay, you look at your and Gloria's relationship with this amazing, like this is this amazing relationship that I have found and I have cultivated and I have worked for, and all of that is true. And what it sounds like is there's a lot of pain around your daughter not also being able to see this relationship the way that you see this relationship, right? And I think we can also hold with respect that both can be true. Like, she can be scared, actually, not even both. All things can be true. She can be scared. She can acknowledge that she's sabotaging. She can also see how beautiful it is. She can also be terrified by that. There's a lot of things happening right now, and especially at 12. Like, can we all just also talk to the fact that 12, 13 is like a fucking crazy time, right? Like, we think we're emotional. Like, that shit is like, she's a toddler again. Basically, her brain development right now, right, is as if she were 2 years old again. And I have a 2-year-old right now, right? So, like, we all know what that is like. And so I do think we are building exactly what Danae said. It's like, we are showing her that rupture and repair is very normal in relationship. And this is what it looks like. We get to set boundaries around how we get spoken to. We get to set boundaries around, being polite and all these things. And also, you can be mad at me. That's okay. I still love you. I'm still here. And also remembering what it was like to parent a toddler, because she's going to come in hot. And I promise you, this will not be the last time she comes in hot. She's 12. You got like a lot more to go, right? And so I almost like kind of half jokingly want to normalize the fact that like you're like at the tip of the iceberg of like these teenage explosions, right? And so I love it's real, right? I mean, I was a monster when I was 13. Like, I commend my mom for not murdering me half the time, because I look back now and I'm like, damn, I was a lot, right? Everything just feels so much bigger, and everything is life and death, and everything is, and so I also just want to put words to that, because I think that is a component here too that we just haven't really spoken to yet.
Yeah, I spoke to my therapist about this, and she also told me, like, take the power from Bella. Don't give her the power to control the dynamic. And I feel that my parenting style is very different from hers, even though I've asked her in the very beginning of the relationship. My daughter has 2 very active parents in her life. She doesn't need you to come in to our relationship and parent. Like, you're free of that burden. I just want you to be that bonus person to her, that person that could model healthy behaviors. We're going to have conflict, but what does that look like? How does the repair look like? And I never wanted her to step outside of it. And, shit happens. And here we are. And it's just frustrating. I just feel like I'm constantly going down a rabbit hole and trying to come back for air and telling my partner, like, hey, I'm still here. Please don't leave me. I know this is hard. And then on the other side, I'm telling my daughter, like, your behavior is unacceptable. The way you're acting is unacceptable. So it's like I'm kind of like just torn in the middle.
But I wonder, Jay, can I interrupt for a second? Because I wonder, this idea of being torn, while I completely understand it, I also wonder, like, it sounds like you're putting so much pressure on yourself to be the one that solves this and makes them have a good relationship. And I think a little bit of what Danae was speaking to, like, I get that desire, and I wonder what it would feel like for you to say, that's actually not my job. Like, my job it's not your job between anybody to make sure that they're okay, right? And I get the desire. Trust me, I'm not minimizing the desire. You do feel like you're in the middle of it, and that is hard. And, it's almost like what Danae was saying about what Catherine Winter Celery said when she came in and she said, hey, what's going on? It's like, I wonder what it would be like for you to attempt to ask your daughter, like, hey, explain to me what's happening for you right now. What is going on for you that is contributing to you, having this kind of outburst or speaking to Gloria in this kind of way? Just coming from a purely curious, let me listen perspective. And then doing the same thing with Gloria if you feel like you need to, rather than say, hey, that's unacceptable. You don't need to jump in. This is what we're going to do. Because I wonder if attempting to kind of control that is also giving you more anxiety than actually relief, right? Because we know the harder we cling on to things and want them to be or look a certain way, I mean, the less likely they are, right? And just the more anxiety we're going to
Yeah.
have around it.
And I hear, as you're speaking, Jay, I hear some ambivalence from your daughter, right? Like, it's like, I'm trying to like be in relationship with Gloria, but then I don't know if like that's going to somehow like, take this parent away from me, if it's safe, if like, and so a little bit what I hear Vanessa speaking to is, you get to affirm, like, I still see you. I still care so much about how both of you feel. And actually, it's not my job to like referee between the two of you. I'm not going to do that. And this a little bit gives your daughter an opportunity, like you're modeling her, advocating for herself in this life, right? Like you get to speak to how things feel for you. And I care about that. It doesn't mean that like any person is going to just let you speak to them any kind of way in this life, but you get to feel what you feel. And I care about that, So it's that thing of seeking to understand before like jumping in with the parenting and the compliance. And this is what you're not allowed to do in this house. Like it's a little bit like, yes, we all want to speak to one another respectfully, but that's like hopefully human beings in general, right? Like, but we also very much both care about how you feel,
Right. And Gloria's has come to a point where she's afraid to tell my daughter how she feels. Because I've said, like, if you don't, sometimes I want to interject when I see my daughter behaving badly towards her, but I also feel that her as an adult should say, hey, like, this is not okay. This is how you made me feel.
But wait, Gloria, let me ask you this. Have you said to her, Elise, like, I'm afraid
Not yet.
to tell you how I feel? Because there's a little bit of this that feels like we've got to take a step back and dig down into a little bit more of a vulnerable space. Mm-hmm. Because no matter what we're attempting to do, it does feel like we're trying to come in above the problem rather than come in from below. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is like, rather than be like, you don't get to talk to me like that. Just for example, you say, God, that hurts. That really hurts when you speak to me like that. And I'll tell you, I'm afraid to tell you how much that hurts my feelings because I'm afraid that you're then going to take that and use it against me. Whatever, I'm making it up, right? But like, yeah, it's like, can you use that language, instead of saying like, hey, I'm not saying you're doing that, but it's like, instead of shutting it down, like Danae is saying, can we say, wow, that hurts.
Correct me if I'm wrong, babe, but how Vanessa just described approaching, potentially addressing the behavior with her. Jay has made it their business to constantly talk to their child that way. Hey, what you just said was hurtful, from like a place of love and understanding first and foremost, which I think is, I always tell my partner, like, you are the most amazing form of parenting I've ever seen. Like, you are the best parent I've seen. Like, so help me God, you have the patience of a saint, a million saints. I don't know if that resonates with their child as much as I would like it to. I feel like their child sees that and hears that, and it's like, okay, whatever. And just, it goes right over their head and like in through one ear, out through the other. And when I've been firm with them in the past, not just one way, like I've just said, wow, you know what, that right there is not okay. Or like, that shit absolutely sucks. Like that firm kind of approach seems to resonate with them more. And I don't know if it's because it's firmer than what my partner does, or if it's because it's coming from me. But now, because it could be both, but because my partner approaches the way that they do, and I absolutely know I can do that. I can absolutely start a conversation from a place of love, mutual understanding, and respect. And what I want at the end is for you to talk to me more than I'm saying anything, because I want to understand what all this is from you more, right? I can do that, but I now don't feel safe. I now feel like whatever I'm trying to do to achieve for won't be accomplished, and it won't be respected, and it won't matter to them. So I feel like, what's the point? And whenever I feel like I'm being hurt, I'm afraid to say anything to that child for fear that the way that I come out will either be ignored, won't be understood, or just won't be...
Or you trigger her. Like, she'll be triggered by something from her past.
And it might make it worse.
Right.
So my partner's been telling me, you need to speak up, you need to say something, but I'm afraid to do it. And in turn, it's making me feel so much more smaller. And that in itself is triggering, because this is how I felt in my marriage. And I promised myself I would not allow myself to feel small again. And it hurts so much. It's literally a tangible feeling in my chest that I feel right now.
Yeah, I think to me, that's a lot why there's so much power in what Vanessa is suggesting, which is really humanizing yourself for Bella, which is, this thing of this is hard and I don't know how to do this right. And I'm jumping in here, attempting to be in relationship with you and doing the best I can. It's that thing of like, say the thing, right? Say the truth of what's happening. Some of this is that, we are dealing with a soon to be 13-year-old and Vanessa's not wrong, you guys. Like, she's got to be an a-hole. Like, that's just like the reality of what this like period of time brings, right? And so, yes, you can with deep breaths and what feels like it's going in one ear and out the other is resonating and she's hearing you more than it feels like. And I need you to hold on to that within me. The two of you go in the back room and when you're at your wit's ends a little bit, and also know this is what parenting a teenager is and is going to be. And you can still, and it's not this thing of I need you to respect me. I want us to respect each other. I want us to talk to one another and create a household where we feel safe with each other. Right. And I am so open and wanting to hear how I can do that for you. But I also really want to bring you into what this feels like for me, because I don't have all the answers. I'm doing the best I can, but I'm really trying to care about you and to be in your life in a way that feels like you can feel safe with me. Do you know what I mean?
And also, when you say that, going back to the teenager thing again, it is very likely that when you show up in an intimate and vulnerable space, she's going to roll her eyes at you and walk out of the room.
Oh, I think has already experienced.
But that has nothing to do with you.
And it doesn't mean that she's not hearing you.
Exactly. And I think this is it too. It's again with the toddler, right? It's like going back to parenting a 2-year-old. We've got to take it. This is not easy. Trust me. We all know this, but we've got to take the personalization out of the response. You know how we always say, you both have done lab, you both have listened to Danae and I a million times. We always talk about you showing up and speaking your truth and saying it in a clear, kind, and compassionate and concise way, right? That has nothing to do with the other person. It actually doesn't. It has to do with you, right? It's not about how they respond. It's because you have decided this is how I'm going to hold myself in relationship. This is how I'm going to speak to people in relationship. This is how I know I need to communicate my truth because I promised myself I would never feel small again, right? Because when I hear you say, now listen, I'm a New Yorker and I tend to come across a little harsh, right? And so sometimes my gut reaction is to be like, excuse you. I literally just said to my kid's teacher the other day, the number of times in a day that I look at my 2-year-old and go, excuse you, is a lot, right? That is my natural inclination. So trust me when I say, I get it. And I am trying so hard to be after I say the excuse you, to go, you know what? It doesn't feel good when you speak to mommy like that. Period. Walk away. I don't need you to respond to me in any kind of way. I just need to speak my truth in a way that I'm attempting to get quote unquote better at how I communicate it, right? And it is from that deeper, more intimate place. And so I think, Gloria, you can do that. It's you can be heard. You can be firm, by the way, because I also don't believe that you can't be firm and compassionate in the same sentence, in the same way. You can say to somebody that really hurts, and I don't like being spoken to that way. That sounds to me really firm. You know what I mean? But there's gotta, I feel like a lot of this also right now is we've got to start to we're not holding a lot of the tension of the opposites here. It's all these things can be true, which is kind of what I said earlier. It's I can be firm and I can be passionate. I can speak my truth in this way and she can take it or leave it and she can walk out of the room and that doesn't have anything to do with me, right? All of these things can be true at once, I guess.
Yeah. And a little bit what I hear you speaking to underneath that, Vanessa, is there's a little bit of a perfectionism that I'm hearing, we're sort of expecting from our, I got to get it perfect or I'm not parenting well, right? And what I want to name will happen because I'm sure it already has and will continue to is this thing of you do the thing and then it gets thrown in your face when you've done something imperfectly, this is what you always do. And you talked to me this one time and this, and what it becomes is no part of me and I own this. No part of me is diminished by me not doing this perfectly. I get to be human. I get to be a work in progress. I get to be doing the best I can. And you can literally name that out loud, but that's like, this is your relationships across the board. And that's a little bit what you were speaking to about like previous relationships. People will try to like drudge up the past and tell you why this is who you're always going to be because this is what I've seen you do one time. No, I get to define myself for myself. I get to decide who I'm going to be in the world and in relationships. And I get to start in this moment, big breath over again. And I get to, I get to own that like me doing something imperfectly does not mean that I am less worthy of love, of partnership, of connection, of all the things, right? I get to be imperfect. I own that for me. Yeah.
Guess what? You're also teaching her that.
That's right. That's modeling
when you
that.
Step into that. Yes, that's what you're also modeling, right? So like Gloria, in those moments that you say, like, let's say you do it in that way where you're like, wow, that really hurt. And I really don't appreciate being spoken to like that. And then you just let it lie, right? It sounds almost like there's no way that we can get from that step to like step Z, which is what Danae is saying, but trust us when we say, that's what you're modeling to her. You're modeling to her that like, I can be imperfect and I know I'm not that person all the time, right? I get to show up every day, try again, continue to make mistakes and continue to try again. And that's okay. I still love me and I still respect me enough to say in this moment, that really hurt. Because that is self-respect. And you're modeling that for her too.
Yeah. And I always encourage her, like, tell her how you're feeling, because then what ends up happening is I go to my daughter and I explain to her how she made her feel. And I don't think that's my job to say, like, this is how you...
1,000%, Jay. It's not.
Yes. And
that's keeping you in the triangle.
Right. And I try to encourage her, like, tell her how you feel, because you keep brushing it under the carpet and eventually, like, you're going to have this moment of explosion again and you're going to go right back to square one. And then I'm just going to feel like the relationship isn't going to work. And then I have to let go of the relationship just to maintain, I don't even know, a safe space for my daughter.
No.
Well, and here's what I want to call out something too. And it sounds so painful hearing you talk about it, Jay. And also I'm putting myself in Gloria's position. And I'm not saying you're doing this purposely, but I'm putting myself in Gloria's position. And that must feel really unsafe for you, Gloria. Because in a way, there's almost like this thing being held over your head. Like, if I don't get this right with this kid, Jay's going to leave.
Yeah, even vice versa. Like, I feel like it may be too much for her. And it's like, I can't handle this anymore. I've tried. Your daughter's just not being receptive. And it's going to come to the point where enough is enough already. I love you, but I don't love your kid. And I don't want that shit a part of my life anymore. You know, she's allowed to say that. And I get scared that that's what may happen. Like, you want a relationship with me, but not with my kid. Then what? Like,
and that doesn't work for you.
It's just not going to work for me. I need for us to just be in a healthy flow and a healthy dynamic. And I'm struggling in the ways of how to do that. And I understand that my daughter's 12 and I have to remember she's immature. I can't expect her to have the same maturity that I have and being in this healing space that I've arrived. You know, she's still stuck in her traumas from the past, and they show here in this relationship. And I constantly have to remind her, we're not there anymore. I know that I acknowledge that it happened. I know that this happened to us. I know that this happened to you, but this is not that situation. I promise you, we're going to be in conflict. She thinks that when we have in conflict, that it's bad. You know, like, conflict is horrible. I'm scared. This is happening again. And I'm like, conflict? I tell her, conflict is actually healthy. Yeah. It's healthy. It's an opportunity to grow and to learn each other. It's just in the ways in that moment, the things that we're doing. Like, I'm not, just because we're having conflict doesn't mean I'm going to be disrespectful to you and act out in ways that are going to make you uncomfortable. You know, I'm not doing that, but I don't think that my daughter sees me in that space just yet. You know, she's still carrying that hurt. She still has this emotional wound that is here. It's like the baggage is here, and I don't know how to unpack it and say this belongs there and this stays here. I'm stuck and I don't know how to help her heal from that.
I just heard you say, I don't know, she has all this emotional baggage and I don't know how to unpack it. That's her baggage. She has to unpack it.
But as a 12-year-old, I feel like it's my job as her parent
to guide her,
to be that guiding post.
To guide her, but you just said, this is her baggage and I don't know how to unpack it. I'm flagging it for you. That hit me hard. Yeah. This is maybe going back to what they just pointed out to us, is it's not your responsibility.
Right. And I know part of me too is guilty because it was my experience that she was a part of that brought her to this space that she's in, that heaviness that she carries.
And I want to remind you that it's your experience also, that you went to AA and that you became a conscious person, and that you did your work and you continue to do your work and you model all the healthy, and you continue to give her that experience now too. And that this is her present. Like, it reminds her, your past is your past. Use it as a catalyst to model your present. Same thing goes, your past is your past. This is your present now. We are your present now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something I just want to name that, when we shift away from codependency into more interdependent relationships, I think a lot of what that looks like to me ultimately is you are safe here. You are safe to be a self. I don't need you to perform for me. I don't need you to be anything other than what you are to be safe. And a lot of times with couples, what I love to suggest is some of the conversations around things like the D word, like the divorce, if this happens, then we're not going to be able to be together. I love to say, let's just put those on a shelf so high we can't even get to them. We don't talk that way. And it's not just for the two of you and creating relational safety because of what that activates within you when you have those conversations. And I'm sure you can feel even Vanessa and I have a little physical reaction to that type of because it just feels unsafe, right? When we're sort of if this happens, then I'm out, or this won't work, right? Not only does that create a lack of safety for the two of you, but it does for your daughter as well. Meaning she's also in the space of testing, how far can I push before Gloria is going to be out, right? And so what creates a lot of relational safety is I'm not going anywhere. You can't say anything to make me not care about you. I'm here,
push as hard as you want.
Sorry, keep it up, keep it coming. I'm not going anywhere, right? And that
Wicked Witch, though. I don't want to do that. And I think that's what their therapist was maybe alluding to when they said take the power away. I don't know necessarily what they meant by that, but could it be that that's what the therapist was alluding to? You, Gloria, have to say or model, smile, whatever you do or say, it, duck's feathers. It doesn't affect me, and it is what it is.
That's not what I'm saying, though.
No, yeah.
I don't want you to be taking emotional abuse. That's not what I'm advocating for. But I am saying, doesn't mean you get to talk to me anyway, but a little bit, I hear her testing, right? How far can I push before you're going to break? And it's listen, we're going to care and respect one another. I'm not going anywhere. So, please know that there's nothing you can say to me that's going to make me not care about you. That is a very containing emotional statement. That's not what's happening, right? And we're going to really work to talk to each other in a way that we would want to be talked to. That's hopefully where we're moving towards. And it may not happen today, right? But some of this is actions speak louder than words. So you're staying and you're not dropping the I don't know how much more of this I can take before I'm out of here. Not dropping those, that builds that structure of we are safe here. We are safe to be the fullest embodiment of my emotional self. And that doesn't mean anybody's going anywhere.
And to build on that too, Danae, when we talk about safety, so a little bit, Jay, what we were talking about you not fixing it, not jumping in to fix the situation. She senses your anxiety and senses you trying to jump in and save and fix, right? And that also tells her that the relationship is unsafe. Mm-hmm. So and it doesn't even have to be said. It doesn't have to be spoken, right? So the way that you jump into that triangle and start to play that little bit of that referee is also just reiterating to her, me and Gloria are not safe together. We actually need this triangle. We need this third point in order to be in relationship with each other. So I think a lot of this, Danae and I talk about constantly, right? This move from codependency to interdependency. Listen, no one's saying you're going to allow your kid to be in some crazy abusive relationship. And no one is saying that you're going to allow Gloria to be talk to like an absolute pile of garbage. That is not what we're saying. But when we are in those moments of conflict, our only responsibility, because she's 12, she's not 2, actually. Our only responsibility in that moment is just to soothe ourselves. Ooh, this is hard. They are fighting. They are talking to each other some sort of way, and it is not my business. It's not my business.
Yeah. And I just want to name that Vanessa and I are speaking to this specifically because I think we both can tell that is not what is happening with Gloria. Like we can just sense like 100%. Gloria's not being abusive to this child. And so there is room and space for that. Right.
For you to step back,
yeah. For you to say like, you guys work it out a little bit. And what that does is create this container. What I hear Vanessa speaking to is that also creates a container for your daughter in I trust Gloria. That's important, right? Like your daughter needs to feel trust Gloria. That's important because if kids are like little GPS systems on their parents. If she feels that you don't trust Gloria to like contain whatever emotional things are happening, then she won't trust Gloria. So that's really important for you to sort of send the message, no, like I trust in Gloria. I trust in Gloria's care for you and that Gloria has your best interest at heart. And so I don't need to jump in here because you are with a safe space with my partner, in a safe space with my partner.
A safe space might still swear sometimes. A safe space
might get pissed off.
Might get a little pissed off and snap and say like, excuse you, you don't get to talk to me like that. And then you know what a safe space does? Once the safe space is cooled down, that safe space gets to go and say, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. That wasn't cool. My feelings were really hurt and I responded out of anger. That's it. Period. Hard stop. That's what a safe space does. They get to go back and they just say, you know what? I own my shit. I fucked up. Shouldn't, that wasn't cool. But that doesn't mean that in those moments you don't get to say something and be like, ooh, shit. I do it every day. Right?
Yeah.
But if we're constantly like white gloving, trying to make sure that those specific ruptures don't even actually happen because of the fear wrapped up around what might happen if they do, she senses all that and she knows all of that.
I've said it to you before. Sometimes I feel like you handle situations with your child with kid gloves on. Well, that's exactly what I meant.
Right? And I get it. Yeah. It's scary. I mean,
and it's so understandable.
It's so understandable based on what you've said. And there's so much guilt, and this idea of you both continuing to do your own healing too, completely outside of your relationship with your daughter. If you're not already, right, my like gentle suggestion to you is that specific guilt is something that you should be rolling around in more because that guilt that you hold over it's my fault that my daughter has now this baggage is going to continue to haunt you, right? Like a little bit of this is we're looking at this from all of our perspectives, all the life that we've lived, all the experiences that we've had, all the age that we've had, and number of years we've had on this planet. We're looking at it through those lenses. She doesn't have those lenses yet. But all of the experiences that she's had up until this point are only going to make her who she is. Whether those are experiences that you quote unquote kind of did to her, right, or not, this is her life. This is her life trajectory. And a little bit of what I heard Gloria speaking to is like being able to be there with care and guide her through what that's like without this worry or this guilt around, I need to unpack this because it's my fault that she has this baggage. It's not your fault.
And I actually think that's what from my perspective, your therapist might have been speaking to with taking that power back is taking the narrative back that like some catastrophe has happened in your life that we can't repair from. No, all of this is like resilience building. This is what is going to make you the most beautiful, strong, empathetic human in the world. And I wouldn't change a thing. And I think that's really important, Jay, for you to own for yourself. Like there's nothing about my journey up to this point that I would change. It has taught me so much about how to be an empathetic, compassionate human and the parent that I want to be to you. I wouldn't change a thing. Was it always easy? Of course not. But this is what like makes us the people that we are meant to be, strong, right? Like, and so I think that's a little how you take that power back, the narrative that somehow like I have destroyed my child or that I did something horrid to my child that I need to be constantly making up for. No, that's just like, we want to sort of put that narrative to bed,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but to what Danae just said, that owning that situation has created and shaped and molded who you are now, I think you own that in a positive way for yourself as an individual. But when it comes to your daughter, you're like, oh my God, you do it the other way around. You're not owning it in a positive way because this is the thing. And tell me what you guys think. Could it be that Jay's daughter is holding on to that because Jay is holding on to it. I don't know. It could be. I don't know the answer to that. We'll never know. But if I feel like, to their point, if you are able to see it the same way for Bella, as you do for yourself, and just say, like you say, that experience has helped shape and mold the amazing person that I am now. I am who I am now because of that experience. If you did that verbally and just modeled that and owned it in all the ways, when it comes to her, maybe she can do the same thing.
That is my hope. I mean, that's my hope for sure. You know, I it's not easy. And sometimes my head just wants to fucking pop when I have these conversations with her, because like, just because I get it and I see it, I have to remember, like, she has her own experience and she's not going to see it through my lens. And sometimes I have conversations with her about my relationship with Gloria, and I feel like I'm kind of like repeating things, and I feel like I'm trying to convince her that this relationship is healthy, and trying to convince her, like, see the dynamic here, see how it's different. And she's just like, it almost feels like she's not able to see it yet. And I don't want to force it on her.
And nor should you.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, to me, that's the differentiation between codependency and interdependence, right? Which is that she gets to have her own process, her own journey around what you have come to understand. You can hold space for that. And as Vanessa said, you can tend to what it brings up for you when she's in that space of resistance. I tend to, like, I don't have to fix that for her. She gets to, and I honor her by allowing her to have her process, her resistance, her, trajectory of whatever that looks like around my relationship with Gloria. And how I hold the journey up to this point wouldn't change a thing. And I get it, right? Like, you get to take as long as you like. Her process is her process. It's not for you to clean that up for her, from my perspective. But that's like, your work is like sitting in the discomfort of what that brings to the surface for you.
And you know what? As we're like talking about this, what it's bringing up in me is I especially from, a 12-year-old, like a bit of an underdeveloped, right? Like, we're still working on creating that emotional resiliency and all these things we're speaking to. At face value, this idea of like, I wouldn't change a thing. All of these things that have happened in my life have helped me be who I am. Really living in and embodying that. At face value, I imagine to a 12-year-old feels a little bit like, oh, so you're not sorry? Oh, so you think this is okay? Now, I'm saying at face value. And continuing to come back to the practice of holding yourself with compassion, kind of like we were speaking to Gloria about, like, I get to be imperfect. I get to show up again and try tomorrow. Again, we're modeling that for her. Because if you spend the rest of your life in like this self-flagellation mode, trust that she's going to turn into somebody who continues to self-flagellate. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it to like be like, hey, be scared of what you're going to turn your kid into. That's not how I mean it. But it's like, we also have to remember that if I want my child to forgive themselves, if I want my child to have that ability to, bounce back and say, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed up, but like, I'm doing my best now. Like, I have to be able to do that with myself. And it sounds like what Gloria said is like, you're there in your own world and in your own process, but the way that you do it with her feels a little bit different. Like, you do still hold on to guilt. And you're probably not ever going to not have some guilt. Like, let's all be real about that, right? But that might be more of your process right now, is really focusing in on the guilt that you carry around, what I quote unquote did to her. And like, can I actually allow some of that guilt to go and be free? Because she senses that in you too. Like, they hold on to that.
Yeah. And Gloria pretty much has the target on her back,
Right.
When it comes to the three of us, it's like she's the weakest link between the relationship between me and my daughter, and it hurts me, and I see how it affects her, and then it in turn affects our relationship. So I'm just trying to really hold space for her when I feel like she detaches from the relationship because of what's happening. And I don't think she means to detach. I just feels like she detaches just so she can take care of herself, which I respect, but it hurts. It hurts when she detaches from the relationship.
I'm still working on how to do that in a way that's not hurtful, because it's going to happen. I'm going to need to to protect myself. I tend to do it in a way that's hurtful for my partner. I cower. I completely, I don't, what's the word? Shut down.
Yeah. Withdraw, like you withdraw from the relationship.
Stonewall. I don't completely do that, but having, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It damn near feels like one hair short of that at this point. You know, and that's not okay. I don't want to do that. I know I should remain open, but how do you remain open when you keep getting things thrown at you?
Here's the thing, from one stonewaller to another. what I will say is again, this is this continual every day I get to show up and try it again differently, right? And I get to acknowledge, hey, I did that thing that I know doesn't make you feel very great, right? And I'm going to continue to try to tweak that behavior and alter that behavior and be more open, right? And what I will say is I still shut down. 15 years into doing this work, I still shut down. I have a compassionate partner. It doesn't matter. I still shut down. It is my defense mechanism, right? If I let myself go, I will dissociate. I am totally stonewalling my partner, you know, and there have been tools along the way that help it get a little bit better. And I say a little bit better because I still do it. And I also say to my partner sometimes, I can't talk about this right now. I'm really overwhelmed. And I feel myself leaving my body. I feel myself shutting down. I feel myself getting defensive. So I'm actually going to take 15 minutes. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to separate from you. Not that I'm not coming back. I gave it a timeline. I'm going to take 15 minutes. I need that time for myself. That, by the way, is not actually shutting down. That's not emotionally abandoning your partner. That's owning where you're at in your process and asking that person to be compassionate with where you're at in your process. I need a little bit of time. I'll be back in 15 minutes. For me, it's helpful to go off and like write out some of the shit that's going on in my mind when I start to do that like dissociation thing, you know, bring it back down to like a tangible level. Then I come back in 15 minutes and I go, I got bullet points. I need to read these bullet points to you. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, there are ways that you can still have that process and bring your partner, bring Jay in on your process, right? And through that, you actually do get quote unquote better at it each time.
I have to agree. The first person who ever modeled that for me was my partner. Like, I'm going to need to take a day or two, but I'm going to check in with you every day so you know I'm not gone. And if I need more time, I'll tell you. And when I'm ready to talk, I'll tell you. And it took 2 days. And then the second day, they said, I'm still here. I'm just checking in. I'm taking time. I need an extra day. I promise to come back to you. And they came back to me in the third day and said, I'm ready to talk. Are you? And I was floored to the point where I felt myself falling through the floor. Almost, I was part of the floor. And then there was a time much more recently, and this is way early on in the big, like that happened early on in our relationship. And then there was a time recently where something had happened between me and the child. And then I got so upset and I started to disassociate a bit. And my partner made it their business to say, okay, I'm going to go for a walk because I need one. Do you want to come with me and vent about it or not? And I did nothing, but we walked the dog and it's like a 10-minute walk. And I vented the entire time that by the time the walk was done and we had reached the front of the house again, I realized, holy shit, I'm almost done venting, almost. And we've already walked for about 10 minutes. And I stopped and I said, I need more time. Could you walk with me again? And my partner said, absolutely, I will walk with you. And if you need to keep venting, go for it. I'm listening to you. And by the time we did this loop, I was calm. I felt heard, seen. And I think we had come to some sort of middle ground. Not progress as far as we're going to handle this way moving forward and we're going to try this thing. But that process in itself was a world different for me. It's as if I visited Jupiter.
Your nervous system in that moment. It's not necessarily when you're activated like that, you're not making future plans. We're not trying to solve world peace when we're in an activated state, right? All we're trying to do is get our nervous system to come back on, like into this, you know, into our range of resilience. Then once we're there, then we can all attempt to solve world peace, right? But like that 10-minute walk is not where that happens. That 10-minute walk is really just for you to kind of regulate yourself, right? Whether it's with Jay or on your own, right? That's just it. That's the whole purpose of that 10, 15 minutes, you know?
And I love that you sort of intuitively did that, Jay, because when we are more on the avoidance scale of things, what ends up happening is what I've learned for a lifetime is whatever my emotional world is too much, right? So I have sort of like conditioned myself to hold it myself. So actually the brave alternate action is allowing someone else to witness me in whatever feels like my emotional mess in this moment. I love that you held space for that in such a like beautifully like safe, containing way, Jay. But I think, for you, Gloria, a lot of times your work when you want to stonewall is to, yes, give yourself the breath that Vanessa's talking about, but check in with the narrative that I'm telling myself, right? What is the story I'm telling myself about what is happening here? Even like writing it down, that this is always going to be the case. I'm never going to have a space in this family. Like whatever the narrative that the dialogue that's happening in my head, it becomes really important for me to name that for myself so that I can start saying to Jay, the story I'm telling myself is, and then I start to invite that other person into my emotional landscape so that I can see I don't have to hold all of this by myself, because what I would imagine, and Vanessa, you can speak to this, is like, I've done that for a lifetime. That is the coping mechanism I know how to do, but sometimes we can sort of be perpetuating the wound by continuing to hold that all by myself. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of times on that more avoidance side, like the narrative is something around like, I have to do this alone. I'm always in this by myself. I'm always right. And so to Danae's point, like if you can actually get to a place where you're like, oh, there it is again. There's that loop that keeps going. And then you share it. Like my partner's very well aware that that's my narrative, And so knowing that that's where I go, a lot of times there is that ability to reach across the aisle and say, hey, I know you're going to that place right now. You're not alone. I'm right here. Whether you do what you need to do, whether you need to go off and regulate or whether you need to regulate with me, doesn't matter. But like when you're regulated, we'll talk it out. Right? And it's one of those things where you're like, look over your shoulder. You're like, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Yeah, that's me every time. Look at who are you? Where did you come from? I'm always having moments where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so lucky.
Oh
my
God.
Like,
I still do that. Years in, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? You mean he said it a million times, right? So it's a lifetime of unlearning the shit that we've learned, right? It doesn't happen overnight. I want to say that for the conversation we've been having about the three of you as a dynamic too, right? It's a lifetime of unlearning and learning and then unlearning some more and then learning some more. This is not going to get solved overnight, right? You guys, you've got a fresh teenager on your hands. You got a few years of volatility ahead of you. Hate to break it to you. I didn't think I liked my mom until I was like 20 and I moved away. Like let's just be real. Continuing to practice, like not personalizing it, showing up and saying, what do I want to model? What do I want to model for her? Even if it doesn't look like she's taking it in right now, I have to trust that me modeling this is the lesson that I'm offering her. Whether she chooses to take it from you or not is 100% her decision, but this is what I'm offering her. And self-soothing. It sounds a lot like there's some self-soothing in this, like especially this idea of like, I'm not going to play triangle. I'm going to self-soothe around this, Yeah.
And that you guys in your relationship is separate from the relationship dynamic with the three of you. Like it's like these little family systems, right? And so I really want you guys also to focus on like you two are your own system. And that gets to be a sacred, separate system from what is happening in the family. Doesn't mean it's not impacted by it, of course, but also there's safety and like, we're not going anywhere just because we have an emotionally volatile teenager on our hands, which we will, to Vanessa's point, she's going to at 21 be like, oh my God, those years, my teenage years, I was the devil, but that's developmentally appropriate. And a lot of the self-regulation work that we're talking about is like you reminding yourself of that in these moments, just like with a toddler. It's like, none of this is personal. They're working out all these growing pains and it's not about me.
Yeah, sure. I say that all the time. Growing pains, they're hard. Really hard. That's necessary.
I get to step in, especially you, Gloria. Like, it doesn't matter even if she's in her growing pains. I still get to step in and be vulnerable and say, that really hurt my feelings. Or I get to have my blow up because, whoops, I was triggered and I couldn't kind of control that in that moment. And I get to come back after the fact and say, you know what? I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. She gets to respond however she wants. Again, it's not personal. She can say, fuck you in your apology. Yeah. You know what? It's not personal. I own my shit.
I get you, and I understand that that's how you feel. I respect that.
It's working so hard, the awareness is real. And then being in a relationship where you could actually practice the work it's great, but it's just like so hard because I don't want to lose my partner. I've created this, I've manifested her in my work, and it's just like, this is so great. I want to hold on to it, but this is the hardest thing we're dealing with right now. This is a perpetual problem for us. But this triangle, you know.
You're not doing it
This
alone.
is, yes, and beautifully said, Gloria. This is you guys workshopping the truth of like, we're in this together. You don't have to do these things alone. So beautifully said. And so let's put that fear on a shelf where we can't even get it. Like, y'all aren't going anywhere. This is like, you manifested this. We can't lose this. This is beautiful. We're here together in this. Yeah.
And as we know, like, good relationships are not easy. You know, this whole bullshit narrative around like, if it's the one, it should be like, we know it's bullshit, right? It's hard work because we're the kind of people who really are trying to like, you know, grow and evolve. Like, yeah, it might be easy for people who want to keep their head in the sand, but that's not the people in this room right now, you know? And so if that's the case and we want to be holding ourselves accountable, we want to be like, it's hard. You know, and we have to just acknowledge that too. Yeah, it's not personal. This is what I signed up for. I signed up to grow with this person and to let myself see in a mirror sometimes. And God, that sucks. You know, this is what I signed up for. And so that also helps depersonalize it too. It's not about the other person. This is the path that I chose. I want a conscious relationship. And sometimes that's what it takes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agree.
Appreciate you both so much. Like I said, I think this is going to be really helpful for people to hear. And I appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to go there and let us in on your story.
Thank you both. Thank you for having us. Thank you, Danae and Vanessa.
You guys take care. Let us know how you're doing. Okay.
Well, we will.
Yeah, send us an email.
I will. Thank you guys. Bye.
Great. Bye, you guys. Take care.
From navigating headlines
Fentanyl poisoning, more prevalent than COVID deaths, car accidents, and even suicide.
to a proven strategy for success.
If you do that every day, it changes the way you go through this world.
That then translates into something physical as well as something chemical in your brain.
Critical and relevant information to help you navigate through life.
It leads to a higher degree of success.
Fill in the blanks. Available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I really loved that couple so much.
You know, I think after listening to that, I'm sure you all feel the same way as we do, that there was so much in that I found myself in and that I could relate to in so many ways. Like, even if you're not a parent, right? I mean, you can just, the struggles that it sounds like they've both come from and what they're attempting to create in this relationship is so commendable. It's so, I don't know, like I commend them, I guess is the best way I can say it. It's like, it just is, it's wonderful to hear people really saying like, I am committed to having a conscious relationship and, you know, we're going to do everything in our power to make that happen.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like I hear you speaking to the layers of vulnerability the two of them demonstrated. And, you know, I often say, I think parenthood is one of the most vulnerable things that we will do as human animals. It's, you know, like literally your heart walking around outside of you. And, you know, just, you know, that this person, this being could floor you at any moment. I think that must, and both of us have young kiddos, but I think that must get more intense as they get older, you know, and you sort of feel that push and pull of them moving away from you and coming back, knowing they need you, but like resisting you. And this thing of like attempting to be in partnership with someone and the vulnerability of that, as we all, you know, speak to and know, like this thing of standing in front of someone and saying, can you love me? Can you see me and still love all that I am? But also like balancing that with the responsibility of being a parent and also attempting to get to know and love your partner's child. It's just, it's a lot.
Yeah. And I think that layered on top of, you know, so much of the previous generation's approach to parenting was, you know, it's like you being a good parent, the only thing that mattered was that you had obedient children. Like that was the only indication that you were a quote unquote good parent. And, you know, this, she said a couple times, Gloria said a couple times, the idea of respect. Yeah. And it was like, I could hear her parent or her grandparent, like speaking through her, right? Like that wasn't her voice. It was as if it was coming through her because this idea of like demanding respect is so much a part of that old generation. And so much of us gets triggered with our children when we feel as though they're not respecting us. And I think it's so valuable for us to sit with that feeling and really question what our idea is around respect, what our relationship is to respect. You know, what is it about somebody feeling like they're quote unquote disrespecting us that does trigger us in that way? Like there's just so much excavation, I think, that could be done around the idea of respect that I think then gets put on top of children. And I think she spoke to that a few times, and it was in a way that you could tell she was like grappling with it. And I think that was really valuable too.
Yeah. I mean, I just think there's so many layers of mirroring. I think children are such profound teachers if we're really willing to humble ourselves and be present with the lessons that they have to offer us. But I think that you're right. It is a new paradigm of, you know, just a way of being and interacting with one another that we're really attempting to do and be as parents. And I think we've got to give ourselves a lot of grace because none of us are going to do it perfectly. It's a very different conversation than the conversation we were raised to have around parenting. But, you know, as I think we spoke about Catherine Winter-Celery in the episode, and I heard her saying that her dad sort of circled back to her about the way she's parenting and said, you know, it's a better way. And I think that seeing our children and really honoring and attempting to respect them as autonomous beings, you know, giving them the same respect that we would love to have and desire, it's a better way, you know?
I agree. Yeah. And for all of you listening, I will give you a quick update. So I did get an email the next day, and Gloria had a conversation with their daughter outside of, she was showering and she was like doing it through the crack in the bathroom door kind of thing. And she basically said to her all of the things that we had this conversation about, right? Like how she was feeling and how she felt like she was failing and how she felt like she couldn't, you know, live up to this and how she felt like she couldn't get away from what had happened and she was being punished for it. And basically just everything we had spoken about. And she said that their daughter took it exceptionally well. She was quiet. She didn't interrupt. She thanked her for telling her that. And that at the end of it, she came out of the bathroom and was engaging with both of them in like a very cheery way, almost as if a weight had been lifted. And in a way that Gloria said that they hadn't interacted in months. And, you know, she kind of jokingly was like, why didn't I do this sooner? But it was just a really sweet message to get so soon, actually, after the podcast, you know, recorded, because usually we don't get those kind of updates right away. And so I also want to give a shout out to her because I know she's probably listening to this to say like, brava, you actually took it and you did it right away. And I love that.
Oh, that just takes my breath away. Just so beautiful.
It's all about that repair, y'all. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Cheaper Than Therapy.
Be sure to share it with a friend, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And if you want to connect with us more, find us on Instagram at Cheaper Than Therapy, the podcast.